Okay, so we are on.
I can't see you, Jackie. It just says Zoom on the screen. Shall I refresh?
Uh, you can see me now?
Nope. I'm gonna reload and see if it helps. Nope. Did I go
Just,
off and back on?
uh, let's see. Okay, well, we are actually live now.
Okay. I can't see you or me or anybody. I just see Zoom on the main screen. I'm not sure what happened. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All
Okay,
right.
all right. All right, so we are actually on live screen now. You see me now?
Yep, I see you. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. All right. So I would like for you to introduce yourself.
Okay, hi. My name is Reynolds. I'm a speech language pathologist. I've been a speech language pathologist for about 10 years now. And I've had the awesome opportunity to work with babies, children, adults, and grandmas and grandpas. And I'm just happy to be here today to share some insight on language and social skills and feeding. And we're going to cover it all. So I'm excited to get started and share these things with you guys.
Yes, super excited. And for those who do not know me, I'm Jaquise Moore, and I am I guess the person who I don't know how to really say it, but I'm the person who started learning with Jasmine. My daughter has autism. Okay, so thank you for coming on. Super excited. So this is what we're gonna do, how it's going to play about. The topics that we will discuss is social skills, language development, and sensory. So that we're gonna learn about the definition of all three. What does it look like in a classroom, the strategies, and then tie into, because I'm a parent, is so important. My child has services, and I think it's very important to have the connection between the professional and us as parents. So most of the time is 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes of session
Yes.
per day, every week, 2 or 3 times a week. And I think it's very important to know what we can do as parents to implement at home, right? So it'd be a connection between the two so that the children can learn more, practice more. So we're gonna dive into it. All right, so you can just go and make sure y'all guys have your notes because I'm ready.
Well, I will say, most importantly, that the connection between parents and the therapist is so vital because like you said, we only see your child a couple times a week for 30 minutes, but you see your child all day long, all night long. And so for me, you guys are our greatest asset. And so because that language carryover is so important, and carryover is basically what your child is doing in every other setting outside of the speech room. And so as a parent, you are the one who is facilitating that when you're going to the grocery store, when you're in the car, when your son and daughter are fighting and and your child is trying to get something out, when they want something in the kitchen, you know, these are life skills. You have to take what they're learning with me and turn it into a life skill, something that they're going to use on a regular basis. So parents, our relationship is extremely vital, and you need to understand how important of a role you play in this process. Your role is more important than mine because what you're going to teach them in these other settings is what's going to carry them over. So I want to say that at first, so that parents, you really are empowered and understand how
Yeah.
important you are to this process. And then an educated parent is also a vital asset, because now you know what to do and what to say. And in different scenarios, it may not just be, produce this S. You may notice that there's something else on the word level when they're reading stories, opportunities that I don't have to work with that child in that setting, that they may not have had that opportunity to make that connection, that we use these strategies and we use these things all the time. Okay, so I just wanted to start there. And so thank you, Jacqueline,
Yes.
for the opportunity. I'm going to dive right in, because language is associated with the social skills aspect and even the sensory aspect, because these are the ways in which our child expresses themselves and experiences the world. Right? So all these things are building blocks upon each other. And so first, I think it's important for us to look at normal language development, typical language development. And then we can look at the variations that may be seen that help us understand that there are some concerns. And then we're going to talk about what we need to do about it, right? So
yes.
First, I like with language development, I know, Jacqueline, we were talking about how it looks in the classroom, but I want to get started with the younger ones, birth to 6 months, and then work our way down to school age, so that you can see what typical development is supposed to look like on every front, so that if there is a concern earlier on, early intervention is very important.
Very important. Yes.
Started school as of yet, but you may want to look at helping them and providing some language supports for them, so that they are prepared when they get to school, right?
Yes, yes.
So when we get started, the first stage of language development, we're looking at infancy, and that's like birth to 12 months, right? And so through the first, birth to 6 months, your child, we're looking at the receptive portion, and that just basically means what they're understanding. They're sponges. They're taking everything in from the time that they're conceived in the womb. They're learning language. And so when they're first coming out, they're entering the world, they're looking, they're listening. Their ears and their eyes are very important to them at this stage, because they're taking everything in so that they can understand the rules of language, right? So recognizing mom's voice is going to be very important. Being excited, cooing, using vowel sounds like ah, ah, ooh, ooh, ah, ah. Those kind of things. They're making these early babbling sounds, which aren't quite, we don't have the consonants yet, but we're making these sounds to show that we're excited, to show that we want to get mom's attention, things like that, right? As early as 6 months, a child is trying to make eye contact with mom. You know what I mean? So these are some early language skills. By 6 months, they're squealing and sighing and laughing and, starting to make a couple consonants. By around 9 months, I would say we're looking at that. Even at, even as early as 6 months, we're looking at some of those consonants like baba, mama, papa, those kind of things. And they're going to do that word play where they're playing with those sounds and playing with producing those sounds, right? Then we're looking at, 6 months to a year, and the child is using words, mama, bye-bye, those kind of things.
Right.
So now we're getting to see more of expressive language, because your child is actually using real words. They've actually listened to what you're doing and seeing that you say hi when you greet people and you say bye when you leave, that you use a word to get someone's attention, and they're starting to do that. Your mama and dada, things like that, right? That's when we're starting to really see the word play a lot more. They're imitating sounds and even intonations. So when you have your reflection in your voice and you go, like for a question, like, is this yours? That kind of thing. And at the end, your inflection goes up. They're starting to play with that. And they're still babbling. So it might be, mama, things like that. But they're starting to play with inflections and the way that we use language, the way it sounds, right? During this process, we'll talk more about feeding and how feeding affects language, but just keep in mind that, this is when their tongue is starting to become strong and their jaw is starting to become strong, what we call articulators. And that's what you use for feeding and for speech. They were getting stronger by the way your child is feeding and things like that, so that they can actually produce more speech sounds and use language, right? So the next step is the toddler stage. And, that's where we're looking at over a year. So a year to 2 to 3 years old, right? That's our little toddler. They call them the terrible twos and the terrible threes. And they should be able to, at this point, recognize different names. They should be able to follow one-step direction. You should be able to go get the toy, go get the car, and they should be able to do those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, more of those sounds, using gestures. So they're pointing to what they want. They may even take your hand to get what they want, or tap on your shoulder to get your attention when they want things, right? At this time, they should be able to understand words like, oh, no, that's hot, or I'm going to turn the light off and on. Different things, simple words is what they should be able to understand. And they should be able to start producing, 10 to 20 words, primarily nouns, because that's the way children learn in vocabulary. Abstract concepts or harder concepts are actions or what someone's doing. But simple things like that's your bottle or that's your teddy bear, those are nouns. They should be able to use those and say teddy, not so much more than one syllable just yet, but one syllable words, and they'll use it in repetition, like baba for their bottle, things like that. So as we're coming upon a year and a half, you should be able to see them using, 10 to 20, 25 words, different things like that. They should be able to do that. And you should be able to understand more of what they're saying, right?
Right.
Well, as we're getting the age 2 years old, we're looking at more words. Their vocabulary really has to start increasing at this point. They should be able to multitask a little bit more. So getting their toy car and getting their bottle, you know what I mean? Sitting upright and eating with their spoon and things like that. Like, we're looking at them progressing a little bit more. They should be able to say multisyllabic words at this point, which is more than one syllable. So it's not just the repetition of baba. It might be teddy or ducky or doggy, things like that. Right. And keep in mind that these words might not be completely able to be understood, because there's also a progression of speech sounds. So all of the consonants are expected to be produced at certain times. And so some of the ones in the back, like G's and K's and stuff, K may come a little quicker than G. S may come a little bit later. T may come before. P may come early. But you may see N come a little bit later. Things like that. So keep in mind that they won't be as understood, but you're supposed to be able to, if they point, you're supposed to be able to understand for the most part what they're saying, right? They're humming, they're singing, those kind of things are going to be important. They're going to try to produce more syllable words because they're going to hear you producing words like helicopter and intelligent. And I had one little kid whose mom was wondering what in the world he was trying to say. And he was producing a 4-syllable word. I think it was caterpillar. And I said, wow. And mom's like, I can't figure out what he's saying. And then we did the Very Hungry Caterpillar book, and he kept saying it the way he was saying it. And it's like, he's saying caterpillar. And I'm like, yeah, because kids are naturally overachievers. They're going to try to produce these longer words, even if they're too young for it and their little mouths aren't able to do it as well. So you can encourage them, and it just shows the importance of early development and early intervention. Push them. It's okay. You're not going to frustrate them. They want to learn. They're excited about learning at this stage. So push them a little bit. Even if it's a harder word, get them to try to say it. And of course, if you see a little frustration, leave it alone. But most kids are going to try and get excited about the fact that they tried. And it's not going to sound anything like it's supposed to just yet. And that's okay. Right. You know what I mean? It's just them excited about challenging themselves and pushing themselves to produce language. You would rather them have it early than for them to have it late, for them to are struggling to get it out of them. Right. And so then we start looking at the preschool age, and that's around 4 years old, right? And so, but before we get there, just know around 2 years old, we're looking at about 200, 250 words. 3 years old, we're looking at more closer to 400, 500 words, right? So, just keep in mind that it's a big jump from ages 1 years old to 2 years old to 3 years old. We're expecting them to go from maybe 50 words at two to 500 200 200 500 words by the time that they're 3 years old.
And
So
can I stop here for a second? Okay,
sure.
so how do we kind of like how do
Facilitate.
they how do they use it? Is it
So
just by
don't be
seeing or
afraid, parents.
listening?
Don't be afraid. That's what I mean when I say them absorbing everything. So what you want to do at this stage is just expose them to everything and tell them what things are. When you are going places, it's never too much to tell them what a tree is, a car, a road, a stop sign, red, green, the sun, the clouds. Go on a tangent and tell them what everything is that's around them. Because what we don't realize as parents sometimes is they're learning from us. So if we're not talking to them as consistently as possible, like you may see parents sometime in the streets, and usually I see it with more Caucasian families. Mom is just going on a rant about what's going on around them and talking to them constantly all the time. And different communities do things differently for different cultural reasons. And I'm not going to get into that, but I'm a cultural buff. And so because of where we originated from in the world, we do things differently. And so, when I went to Africa, I see 2 and 3-year-old children owning the family business, laying out the tarp, drying out the fish, putting them in the oven, creating these, the paste for the fish sauce. 2 and 3 years old. These parents didn't have to tell these kids anything. Babies got up and learned from what they needed to at age 2 and 3 years old. There's kids in America and they're barely feeding themselves at that age. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when I say culturally, from different cultural aspects, and we come to one place like America, there's certain things that become common and certain practices that we've got to pick up because of the environment we're in. And so here in America, because of the way things are, we have to tell our kids wherever we go and whatever we're doing, what they see. They need to know what the names and the words are of these things. So it's just like mom's cooking on the stove. We got stove, we got pot, we got water, we got boiling, we got hot, we got, you know what I mean? Noodles, we got all these words for one simple action. Tell your kids all this stuff. Countertop. Oh, the countertop is cold because it's a stone countertop. You know what I mean? Stone. Oh, look at the marble. Oh, look, it's so smooth. Just bombard them with words. You may not think they understand that, and it's fine because their brains are learning and growing every day. So like I said before, it's never too much. Every time you go somewhere, bombard them with language. When you're reading those bedtime stories, at this time frame, you're giving more information than asking questions. As they get a little bit older, you can ask more questions, but my model is always teach first, ask later. You know what I mean? So you're telling them it's a dolphin that's under the water, that's jumping, and that he's splashing the water everywhere, and that look at all the fish and the starfish and the sea plants, and you know what I mean? Like, and the water is, you're telling them all this stuff. And so that's the importance of pictures, right? You can point things and give your child a visual reinforcement for what you're pointing and what they're seeing, so they can make a visual connection with what that word is. And this is how you build up that vocabulary. Okay. So just one simple simple thing to do every day is just tell your kid what you're doing, narrate their play, narrate what you're doing through the day and everything you see. And this will help us go from 20 to 50 words to 200 and 1,000 words, right?
Thank you. Thank you for explaining everything. Yes.
No
Yes.
And so now we look at the school, it's pretty much preschool, which is early school age, right? We're looking at age 4 years old. And by this time, parents, we're looking at 1,000 words, right? Vocabulary, starting to see them transition into action words or verbs, those kind of things, right? And so at this age also, the connection is they're understanding most of what they're hearing. So when your little one hears things, like I said before, like don't be worried that they're not understanding everything. Their brain is processing it and taking it in. Maybe not enough to express it yet, but they are learning from it. But now at preschool age, 3 and 4 years old, they're understanding everything you know what I mean, most of what you're saying to them. They're starting to ask their own questions because now everything's going and they've heard it enough times. So now they're asking questions to make those connections. They're starting to use pronouns, he and she, he hit me, you know, things like that. They're understanding that he is also Johnny, my brother. You know what I mean? They're making those kind of connections. They're having a conversation with you. So so that's a dialogue, right? Asking questions, getting answers. You asking them questions, getting answers. They're starting to understand a conversation and a dialogue, right? So 3 and 4 years old is the time to explain things to them. Maybe concepts that are a little bit harder, especially in this time of COVID. 3 and 4 is when they're starting to understand a little bit better that things are different outside, right? So
Right.
An opportunity to share with them now what's happening and why we wear masks and why you can't see your friends. A friend of mine video and her daughter's a little bit older than that, but she was just crying about, you know, not being able to see her friends, and that was tough. But I think what helped is that mom explained, you will see them again. No, it's not the last time. Like, she's explaining to her child, yes, this is a different situation, acknowledging her feelings. Yes, you're sad. You're so sad, and I understand why you're sad because you miss them. You know what I mean? But don't you worry, you're going to see them next year for school. You know, those kind of connections we're looking at this age, because now they're starting to really relate to the world around them, right? So you're going to start to see them using real complete sentences. Like before, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to rewind a little bit, but around age 2 and 3, you're starting to see them put words together. So then, mama come, or I go, or Teddy come, or Teddy swim, or whatever. They're putting those two words together at around 3 years old. But now these skills have emerged around age 3 to 4, and now you're getting full sentences. It's 4 or 5 word sentences, right? They should be able to use a complete sentence at this point. And so those are things to keep in mind, parents. Also, I have a developmental chart that I'm going to post in the Zoom before we go. And I'll also, when I share this video to my page, I will have the link in there as well. And it's a complete guide for parents. It's a developmental chart for every area, from speech sounds to language to listening to reading to writing to feeding to all of it. And so parents will also give you some milestones to follow. If you start seeing your child lacking certain areas, you'll know some strategies that you can ask a therapist for, or some things, YouTube videos that you need to be looking for on how to do certain things, or even what skills that you need to help your child.
Right. And I also want to say, I actually have posted, probably going down maybe about a week ago, I posted a milestone list. So if you guys want to go online and, you know, check those things, it will talk about the birth all the way up to 5 years old.
That's awesome, because birth to 5 is what we're looking at for early development and language skills. This kind of lays the foundation, and that's why it's important. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're getting to school age. Now we can talk about what, you know, your teachers may be telling you about your child, as well as what we do in the school, right? So at 5 years old, they're asking 1,000 million gazillion billion questions, right? They should be able to follow 3-step directions, even more complex ones. So at this point, if they're coming to school, they've got to, if teacher says, take your coat and your backpack off, put it in your cubby, take out your lunchbox, put it on the table, and come sit for learning. That's like 5 steps, you know?
Right.
And you may think that those are simple steps and they become what we call routine, but your child has to be able to comprehend all those things. And so a child who has difficulty with auditory processing or receptive language, or language in general, or maybe a bilingual, multilingual student, you'll see they may not do all, they may do none or only a few of the steps given. And that's a key factor that we look out for, because this is a routine direction. So if the first couple weeks of school, this child's having difficulty with these things, they come in and they sit down at their desk with their backpack still on their back, or their coat still on, or their lunchbox is not in the place they're supposed to be, or they leave work in their backpack, or they are standing at the locker or their cubby for a long time and they don't come sit down. These are all indicators that there's a concern, right? When it's a child who, doesn't like to be called on in the classroom, in circle time, all the kids want, everybody's have both hands in the air trying to get the teacher to call on them. If you see a child who's sitting there and they're not, answering the questions, or they don't raise their hand to respond, or they're not even paying attention, but they're playing with their fingers, bothering another kid. These are all concerns as well, that they may not be grasping the information that's being presented to them, that there may be some concerns with attention, that there may be concerns with some other things like, autism and different things like that. Usually that's the child sitting by themselves, not looking sad, just don't want to be bothered and don't want to answer the questions, So these are some things that we're looking at in the classroom, because they should be able to use descriptive words like, oh, that's sticky. Oh, he's so soft and hairy, things like that. They should be able to use descriptive words, and use appropriate grammar. Like when he say he hit me, that's appropriate grammar, right? Or they won't play with me. A 5-year-old should be able to say they won't play with me. But if you start seeing them having difficulties with putting sentences together to express themselves is a concern, you'll see a high level of frustration a lot of times too in the classroom. I'll see, a kid on the playground, they just come over and they're inconsolable, and I can't get out of them what has happened. They will literally,
Right.
And go. And they're using all these words sporadically, but they're not putting anything together to give me an idea of what happened. That's a big concern as well. A lot of times teachers will also tell me that they don't complete their assignments, their work. They, a lot of times I'll see, even with the OT factors, if something sensory is off, they're writing really big. They can't stay within the lines.
Stop right here. So for some parents, what is OT?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Occupational therapy. Sorry. So there's physical and there's occupational therapy, and we work together really closely with them. Physical therapy is what we call gross motor. That's the use of your arms and your legs, those kind of things. OT, or occupational therapy, is fine motor. So that's holding a pencil, zipping up your jacket, holding a spoon, opening up your bag of chips, playing with the Play-Doh, cutting. Crayon, using your crayons appropriately. Those are what an occupational therapist will look at, providing those supports in the classroom for a child. Physical therapy is if your child has trouble walking, uses a wheelchair, or has some weakness in their arms and legs and stuff like that. So that's
low muscle tone or any. Yes.
Those kind of things. So I apologize for that.
That's okay. I mean, I know what it is. She has the services for those things, but for the viewers.
Yeah, but parents need to know. So I appreciate that.
Very important to know. And all of them tie into each other. Opening up the bag, a child who have autism may not express, I need help. So they're just sitting there with the bag of chips, and their friends are eating their chips, and so that's it's all about language and development, and connecting all of the services together. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so in the classroom, I'm looking at those things. If the teacher says that the child's not answering their questions, or is having troubles like that I just expressed on the playground, or is not connecting with the other students, those are all concerns that we're going to see. Issues with classwork, even this early, issues with classwork. A teacher will come, and usually I've established a relationship with all the teachers in the school, so they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm concerned with this one. Can you do an observation? And so that's where the process kind of starts. We get permission from the parent for me to do a screener. I can come out and observe in the classroom. I can come and observe everybody, and your child included. And then, if I feel like there's more concerns, then we go to the next level for a screening, which I will provide a both receptive and expressive language screening. And if there's other concerns like articulation, which is the speech sounds,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a screener, and then we go up the process, what we call SST. And that is basically where we come to the table and say, hey, Miss Reynolds has done a screener now, and these are some concerns. Let's put a plan in place for the teacher. I'll provide support for the teacher. They'll try some strategies. If that doesn't work, we come back to the table, do a full assessment, and look at creating what we call an individualized education plan, which is an IEP.
IEP.
Right?
Yes.
And so that's kind of a little bit how the process works and what we do in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So just so you give you an idea of some supports that I provide in the classroom is they pull out and push in. Pull out is when I pull a child out in a small group or a one-to-one setting. Push in is when I come into the classroom and provide those supports in the classroom while they're doing their day-to-day activities and talking to their teacher. So I provide both. And I think both are very important, because when I pull a child out, we're looking at addressing those concerns that I found that, that they have goals for. And everything that I mentioned previously, if something is missing, that's a goal.
Right.
And like I said, the earlier, the better. So I'm looking at helping that child produce complete sentences, answer questions. So I use a lot of pictures when we're answering questions, those kind of things. And parents, reading a story is my favorite thing to do with kids. Like, I know in this day and age, kids want tablet, TV, video games, but I'm telling you, you want to facilitate and encourage reading and the love of reading.
I have to put and she has weekly story time on her page, right? Is it on your page or on YouTube?
Yes. So, and I'll share the YouTube channel as well. One of the videos I talk about is reading and how you can cover a host of speech and language concerns with reading a story to your child. Like building those vocabulary, like I said, telling them what things are. And sometimes you'll ask them a question and you've got to answer the question and have them repeat it. They do learn from that. You're not just giving the answer away. They're learning from that process as well.
Right.
So look at those things. And so
the WH questions.
Yes, WH questions. And when I do WH questions, we spend a whole session on what that thing is. Who is a person? What is a thing? Where is a place? I just do that first. I can't ask them those questions if they have no idea what the question is. So always breaking down those factors as well. So did you want me to transition into some social skills?
Yes, please.
All right. So social skills, and I'll explain what that is first, because that's going to be really important. School, it's a part of language, yes, but social skills, what we call pragmatic language, is the same thing. Social skills and pragmatic language, and that it focuses on the ability to understand just the rules that we use for communication, right? And expectations, and able to use facial expressions in conversation. So it relies heavily on your society or your social interaction with others. Right? Social skills wouldn't matter if you're all by yourself. Social skills matter when you're communicating and in an environment with other people, right? So you got to understand the norms for your society, and they change based on different societies and different cultures, right? For me, there are three main components to it. There's language use, there's language transition, and then there's language compliance. And I'm going to explain those things. And so language use is pretty simple. That is your ability to use language. Are you able to greet people, ask questions, express how you feel? Those are all the use of language. So you understand the rules of using language and you're able to use them, right? Transition is based on the person that you're talking to. Like, are you able to pick up on someone's body language and someone's cues? So if you're talking about a topic that's uncomfortable, are you going to transition to another topic? Or if someone seems bored, are you going to change the topic? Or better yet, if someone's talking about something, are you going to continue the conversation, or are you going to abruptly change the topic? You know what I mean? If someone's telling you auntie who's sick and you're so sad about it, you're going to say, girl, maybe we should go to happy hour. Those kind of things aren't appropriate. Or in a child sense, if a child's talking about their Christmas gift and they got something for Christmas, so excited about it, Are you going to talk about, oh, it's raining outside? You know, are you able to keep the conversation going for as long as it needs to? And are you able to change it when it needs to be changed? And that's going to also be based on, it's always based on the listener or the person you're communicating,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Then there's what we call language compliance, and that's following the rules itself, right? So that also relies on the person, but are you turn taking? So if someone's talking to you, are you going to cut them off and just start talking? Or are you going to take turns? If they ask you a question, you're just going to sit there quietly and not say anything at all? Or are you going to respond to their question? If they make a joke or they laugh, are you just going to sit there? Are you going to laugh too? You know,
Mm-hmm.
these are all things that, these are the three main components that are important. And compliance mean you're greeting someone when you see them, you're explaining how you feel, you're asking questions about things. These are all the areas of social skills that are going to be important. And so when I'm looking for a concern, I'm looking for a lack in one of these things. So a lot of times my kids won't know when to respond. So if someone asks them a question, they might sit there or they might repeat the question. Right? So that's a concern. I've seen that with children who struggle with social communication issues. And so a lot of people think that it's just children with autism who have those concerns, but no, there are a lot of social communication disorders and differences and difficulties that are not autism. So it's important. There's other factors to look for with autism than just the social piece. And then there's other things to look at when there's the social piece outside of just autism, right? So that's important to know. And so when we're looking at those typical developments, when it comes to pragmatics or social skills, I'm going to once again go over some milestones, right? Just so you can have an idea of what to look at, you know, in your child, especially at birth to 6 months. You know, when they're a baby, you're thinking, oh, you know, I don't need any support. You know, they're too young. But no, you know, even if you are helping them make more eye contact or connect with other people at that young age, other babies and things like that, you're facilitating and you're supporting social skills and social language, right? So your birth to 6 months old should be able to establish eye contact. That's the first thing we look at. You know, eye contact is so important from the time a child is born. And at birth to 6 months, they can't really see or distinguish all the features on your face to recognize, you know what I mean? There's just right. To recognize their parents' faces and familiar faces. So looking in the eyes is very important. Like looking at the parent or the person in the eyes, you can tell so much from the eyes. Babies can infer so much from your eyes.
From the smile on the face. If they look at
smiling, yes, because you smile, they will smile. Even that early. So those things are eye contact, smiling, babbling, you know, to get their parents' attention. You know, and you'll notice a baby will do that, and then you'll look at them and they'll stop. You know, they're trying to get your attention. They're attention seeking is what we call it. A birth to 6 month old, that's what we're starting to look at, right? Or if there's something falls on the floor, they should be turning to look at that thing that fell on the floor. Even that young, right? Responding to voice when someone calls out, even if it's not their name. You know what I mean? They may not, they're just starting to recognize their name at that time frame, usually, you know, up to 9 months. But as that early, they should be, if someone's name is being called, they should look. You know, if sounds are happening, they should be looking at these things. At 6 to 12 months, we're looking at them responding to no. So they should, you know how kids you say no, and they just stop and they look at you, right? That is important. That means they're understanding language. Understand no means no. You know what I mean? Right. Lack of a better way of putting it, no means no.
They may try you, but
yeah, right. Now we're looking at them responding to their name. Like I said, around 6 to 9 months, we're looking at them responding to their name, trying to talk. They're babbling still, so it's not real words, but they're trying to talk. You're trying to they're yelling out to get your attention. They can play games like peekaboo and patty cake and things like that. They are socially connecting and interacting with you at this point, even though they don't have their language, right?
Right.
That's important. Then we're starting to look at the 1-year-olds, the 2-year-olds, and then we talked about that following direction piece. Receptively, that is a part of social skills, right? If you use a gestural cue, go get that. You're pointing. They should be able to look at where your finger is pointing to see what you're talking about. Waving high and by. Before, as they're becoming, up to age 1, they're soaking in that you see mommy say hi to people, you see mommy say bye to people. And now they're starting to use that. They should be able to wave bye, maybe start to voice bye, bye, bye. Those kind of things are going to be important. They can even start saying no. You don't really want that, but but you do. You want them to start saying no because they understand the word and they're using it. It shows understanding language, which is receptive, using language, which is expressive, right? They're using intonations, like I said before, at the end of to produce question. Turn taking, like they may stop babbling when you're talking to them. That's an indicator that they understand language, right? They may, when they're playing with their dolls, little girls, or cars with little boys, they're imitating what they see you do. That's how you know that they picked up that language, because now they're acting it out.
Yep, rocking the baby doll. Yep.
Yes, right. Those kind of things is when you start seeing it as early as 1 and 2 years old, right? And as they get a little older, 2 emerging to 3, they're looking at other kids. Even earlier than that, especially if they have siblings, they are they're gonna say, hi, thank you. They're gonna want to play with other kids. You should be looking for this interaction with other children this early as 1 and 2 years old. Like, babies interact with their siblings. They'll see their brother and sister come over and they'll play with them and they'll smile and they'll giggle. But as they get to 1 and 2 years old, they should be seeking out playing with other kids. Like if there's another kid there, there's no reason that they're playing in the corner by themselves. The natural inclination is to go over there. It's something that they would really just naturally want to do, is to go over there and play with the other kid, get the other kid's attention. You know what I mean? That's when you're starting to see those. So look out for those things, because that's going to be important. That's one of the first questions I ask parents, does your child play with other children? And the difference between playing with other children and playing amongst other children.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. If you can dive into that one.
Sure, definitely. So playing with other children is taking turns with toys. Like we're playing with the same toys. Or if I'm with a car, that you may see your kid follow the other kids playing with the car. So the kid's going vroom vroom, your kid may go vroom vroom, or they're laughing together. It's an actual playing with. So it's just like your child is paying attention to what that child is doing. That child's paying attention to what your child is doing, and they're working together. But playing amongst means your child is playing by himself. He just happens to be sitting next to somebody else. In no way paying attention to that child, what that child's doing. That child may even tap him on the shoulder to get his attention, or ask him a question, ask him to play, or try to play with him. And your child may not be playing with him at all, or may move out the way, turn his shoulder, showing, hey, I don't want to play with you. You know what I mean? Or completely ignoring that child. Like I've seen children playing, the child is getting this child's attention, like, Timmy. And Timmy just, shoulder shaking because he's being moved and not paying him attention, like, completely ignoring that child. And so those are things to look out for, because you'll see it, especially if your child has siblings, because they won't be playing with their siblings. They may engage a little bit more because it's a familiar person, but they're not looking at that child. They're not looking at what they're doing. They're not paying attention to what the other child is doing. Even if their sibling is trying to play with them, they may allow the child to play with them, but they're not engaging back. So that's going to be something to really look at. As we get to those 2 and 3 year olds, this stuff becomes really prominent. And I talk about it earlier because, like I said, early intervention is important. But if you've missed it, parents, until 2 to 3, it's okay. This is where it becomes real. This is where it becomes really clear that there's a problem, because, they're gonna 2 and 3. Most kids are gonna start going to daycare. And so the daycare provider may start telling you that they're not engaging with other children. They're not playing with other children. They're not, even making eye contact with you or with them, or when they want something, you may not get any language. You just may get a bunch of crying. 2 to 3, they should not still be taking your hand to put towards the item. They should be telling you something, especially if you can't figure out what they want. They should be able to tell you what they want, or pick it up and give it to you. You know what I mean? Or point to it and tell you they want it, whether their words are clear or not. They should be able to communicate what they want at this point. They're using, like I said before, short sentences at this point, because we're looking at 1,000 words, right? So,
Right.
you know, they should be able to use words all over the place. But if they're not using their language expressively, that's a concern, right? That's definitely a concern. If they're not engaging, that's a concern. At this point, they're supposed to be able to understand jokes and even teasing. You know what I mean? If someone makes a joke and they're not really laughing, even in society, when jokes aren't funny, we laugh. A little fake, you know, but if they're not making that kind of attempt, and with kids, they laugh at anything. So even if it's not funny, you know, it's because someone else is laughing, it's contagious for them. So you'll see people laughing and everybody starts laughing. And that was the dumbest thing ever. It wasn't funny at all, but like everyone's laughing. So we're socially engaging. We're having a great time with each other. So we're all laughing, you know? So look at those kind of things, because that's going to be an important determinant that there is a concern, right? And so as we're merging now, looking at preschool age, right? So when we've gotten to 3 and 4 and 5 years old, your child is in school. So once again, if they're not following those directions, you know, they just might be standing at one station of where the direction is, or even center time is a good point. Like in pre-K, they have center time. If the child's not transitioning to center time, you know, a lot of times I look at why. Like that's a concern at that point. They're not able to follow directions. Usually kids are supposed to be able to write their name. Most center times you write your name on the center time, and that's how you know you're going to be at that next space. For them to just wander through center times, or stay at one center, or go to a center that they're not supposed to be at, and then, you know, cry if they have to leave, you know, that's concerning, because, you know, we've followed a routine and they're not able to follow those routine directions. We go and transition from center time, or even sitting in the circle, like I said, atypical or non behaviors that we're not expecting in the circle time, them doing their own thing, singing. I'll see a lot of kids, teachers reading a story or pointing to the days of the week, and excuse me, and that child is singing to himself. He could be looking at her, or he just
not engaged in that.
Yep. Expressing their feelings is important too. I'm sad, or I'm so happy. You know, even if they only have those two emotions, that's okay. You know, the rest come, but not even being able to identify those emotions by name is a problem. You know what I mean? That's a concern. And that could be expressive language, could be social skills, you know, but those are things that we're looking at if, you know, the child has issues with social skills. And I actually have goals for just that: identifying emotions and using and explaining or using them appropriately, right? They should be pretending and make believing at this time too. So if you don't see that, that is what we call getting to a higher level of language and understanding language, because now you're creating fake situations. So that's abstract thinking at that point. So looking at that at age 3 of emerging to 4, they should be able to use pretend situations, like your fairies are flying, or, you know, little boys like to do spaceships for everything. So their car is a spaceship, they're little aliens, and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that.
They like to dress up and do no dress up.
Those things are so important. And so if you see some concerns there, that would be, you know, the time to address it. Because parents, when we're looking at 3, 4, and 5, you know, 5, you know, for me is the point where they've got mastered the majority of that language, right? That those foundational skills. So we don't even want to get that far. If we do, that's fine, because, you know, there's still time to catch up. But we want to start looking. For me, 3 is prime. So if you're seeing any concerns, you know, let's say if you even waited past 2, let's look at 3 and say, hey, now is the time that we're going to get some support. Because like I said, you would rather see that it's nothing than have waited and it's something greater. Because remember, oh, sorry, I had one more thing. Remember, every language skill has its time. And so as we're growing in development, there's more things they have to learn. So you want them to have the foundation skills. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. No, fine. So I was just thinking, what if you what if a parent says, okay, well, I didn't know about this stuff until now, and my child is over 5 years old. What are the things that we can give them hope, and we can address like some services? What do they need to do? The steps in order to get those services for their child.
Okay, so if we're getting to these, if you've gotten to the age 5 and you're starting to see some of these concerns and may have seen them for a while, I would reach out immediately for support. And when I say support, I mean a speech therapist. A lot of these, like we live in Maryland, and so counties, by law, have to provide these supports for children who are school age.
Mm-hmm.
But don't forget what we call in this area, it's called different things, but it's child's fine is what we call it.
Yes,
and
yes.
That's for the little ones. So usually you're looking at age 5, your child is in school. But let's say I'll talk about 3 and then I'll talk about 5.
Mm-hmm.
By 2, 3 and younger, you're getting what's called an IFSP. That's an individualized family service plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is basically like an IEP where your child gets the services. So the first thing you need to do is figure out your county. You Google it. And you can type in child fine, because no matter what they call it anywhere around, Google is a genius. So you could say child support, special education support, whatever. For
early intervention, whatever
you say in such and such county or whatever
state it is. Yeah.
And it will bring you to the Department of Education website in your area, and it'll bring you to that link to wherever that support is provided. There's usually a phone number there, an email address, all those things, and that is where you start. That is where you'll either call for them to send you a packet. Usually in Montgomery County, you call the number and they send you a packet. In PG County, you can send an email, you can call, they can send you a packet. You might be able to fill out an application online. They're still going to send you more information for you to fill out and for them to come. Now, they're going to ask for all the information for your child, but just take note of the things that you've noticed that your child can't do or has difficulty doing. Because that will make things easier when the speech therapist comes. So at that point, so you filled that out. It takes a couple weeks. They will schedule a call and schedule an appointment with you as when they can come out. They will come out. They will do an observation of your child, and they usually do a full battery assessment. Parents, if not, I would request it. You want a full evaluation of your child because you want to know where they are on the standard. You know what I mean? When it comes to typical developing peers. So you'll get a full evaluation when your child, or if and when your child qualifies meaning they'll provide those supports for your child. They will look at the evaluation and the areas that your child had difficulty with and create goals for that. And don't be concerned if everything that's on the test is not on the goal sheet. Usually we work on the skills that they should have acquired first, and that will be on the goals. And then as they progress, we add the other skills that they're supposed to have, right? So it probably won't be all the skills that are the concern, unless there's only a few. And that's how a speech pathologist usually looks at it. So those are the goals we're working on, right? At that point, parents, you have a formal way for your child to get these supports, right? With this IFSP that you'll have, and you'll see what the goals are. And of course, you ask the speech therapist what you can do at home. That's your main question. But also once you know what the goals are, you can Google those as well and find so many different links and supports to show you ways to implement it at home, right?
Yes.
IEP is very similar. If your child is 5 years old, the first thing you're going to want to do is, I like everything to be in writing. So you can go up to your school and speak to a teacher and tell them you are requesting evaluation. But I would say I would put it in writing, have an administrator attached, usually the principal, vice principal, as well as either the teacher or the special education teacher. Once you're writing and you've emailed it to the school, it is the school's responsibility to get it over to the right person, right? So now it's in the system. That starts as day 1. Once you've sent that request and they've received it, that's day 1 of this process. Now they have about, if I'm not mistaken, 30 to 60 days to schedule a meeting with you to address your concerns. What were you saying? Sorry about that.
By law, they have until that time frame.
By law, they have the 60, 30 to 60 days
Right.
to schedule that meeting with you from the date that you sent that email, right? Or that day that you reached out.
Right.
So then you come to the table with, the people who are associated with your child's concerns. If it's an academic concern, teacher, special education teacher, if it's speech and language, the speech pathologist needs to be there. Of course, if it's occupational therapy, the occupational therapist needs to be there. Physical therapy, the same, right? So you make sure that your team has the people in it that can address those needs. We discuss the concerns, and then, a lot of times, the next step is a full evaluation, right? Sometimes they may want to put some time in between it and provide support in the classroom, where the teacher will provide supports, or the speech pathologist will come in for a consult and talk to the teacher on what they can do in the classroom. And they usually give that about 2 to 3 months to see if that has helped the child. But it is your right, and to request a full evaluation at that point. You can say, I want to waive this period of trying to, figure this stuff out or trying to work on it or whatever. I want an evaluation. At that point, your child has to be evaluated, right? In the area of concern. And so, they'll come back to the table once again, they've got 60 days to come back to the table from that meeting to provide you with those results. And if your child qualifies, the next step at that point is writing an IEP. Some schools will do both IEP and assessment report meeting together. Some schools will separate it, but within 30 days, they have to have the meeting for the IEP to be established, right? And from that point on, this is a legally binding contract between, you and the school to provide your child with these supports. And these supports have to be provided however many times they've agreed to on the service page. 30 minutes a week, 60 minutes a week, whatever, however they want to do it.
And so also, okay, go ahead.
No, that's all. That's how it's done.
Okay, and I am an English second language instructor, and so I think it's very important to also say, for those who are bilingual, if you need an interpreter, there is you can request an interpreter for, they have interpreters through your county public schools. You can have someone who as long as you have the information included in the contacts to all the teachers and the principal. So again, if you don't speak English, you don't speak, whatever the language is in that school, then you can also have an interpreter.
And it's in parents, I would say, even if you speak English, if it's not your first language, get an interpreter. It's free. It won't cost you anything. No one's thinking about you any kind of way. It's important because they're going to use big terms and they're not going to always explain them. I apologize in advance. We don't always remember to break stuff down, but these are words that you need to know what they mean. They are going to be school terms. They're going to be legal terms. You want to know what they are saying about your child, because you are your child's best advocate. I tell you,
yes,
you've got to be on your A game. Don't trust, not to say the school's not trustworthy, but don't trust any school. Don't trust anybody. Know it for yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So ask for the interpreter. Even if your first language is English, but it's a different dialect of English, ask again, because even the inflections or the way we say certain words, or what we put emphasis on certain words, may sound different. It may sound like a different word to you. So I would just, ask for an interpreter.
Yes, I also do have someone who I ask all the time to come to the IEP meetings, and we speak English. We were born speaking English, just to know, but because that person is actually in the county working there. So if you know someone who works at the county, don't have to be in that particular school, you can always ask them, and they are always invited to come.
Yes, that's an awesome idea, just for the support too, because sometimes it's intimidating, if they're telling you something about your child that you may not be what you want to hear, or maybe a little sensitive, or maybe something you don't agree with. You know what I mean? It's nice to have the support of someone else there so you can stand up for you and for your child.
Right. Okay, so we're going to dive in really quickly for, I guess you're done. Did you do sensory?
I didn't do sensory yet.
Okay,
sorry.
okay, well, go ahead.
I should talk all day, but I can go right into sensory.
Yeah, go right into sensory.
Okay, so sensory, first let's explain what that is. So
Mm-hmm.
you have different senses: your taste, your smell, your hearing, your sight, your touch.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when we're talking about sensory, we're talking about the way things feel, whether that's how it feels in the mouth or how it feels on the hands or it feels on the body. Those are all sensory. And that is really important because there are sensory sensitivities, and you don't have to have a disorder or a difficulty to have a sensory sensitivity. Like, for instance, my husband doesn't like slimy food. He won't eat okra no matter how many times I give it to him. If oatmeal's a little too slimy, if peppers get a little too soft, he will not eat them. And he doesn't have any kind of that we know of. So anybody can have a sensory sensitivity, but it's something to be aware of, especially in your children, because it's going to affect feeding. It may even affect the way they interact with the world. And so that's just the way your brain processes. Sensory is the way your brain processes that nerve communication, for lack of a better way. So the way your brain communicates, that from your nerves to your brain is different. And so some people have created dislikes or aversions to certain things, and their brain records that and keeps that in there. So every time they feel or are in an environment with that thing, it's a negative connotation. Or so when children, especially when they're eating, I think that's important for us to talk about, because that's where we see it a lot in feeding. And so children are going to, let's say around a year old, maybe 6 months, 6 months to a year is when we start giving them different things, because they're starting to get teeth. Right. So as babies, it's just a bottle. Right. As they get a little older, they're getting applesauce, they're getting crackers, they're getting different texture things. And this is when you're going to start to see some sensory sensitivities, or you're going to see your child have food aversions, or I'm not eating this and they're knocking this off the table, or they're only playing with this and they don't want it. Some children, you also notice, won't even want their food to touch their face and their hands. They don't like the way that feels as well. So those are going to things that you're going to have to look at. So first, when we come to food aversions, you want to break up everything into a different category. Crunchy. And I made a video about this, and like I said, I'll put the YouTube link on there to give you guys some support on that. But you got crunchy, mushy, soft, and chewy. Those are the main characteristics of the foods that your child are going to eat. And so separate them. So even in a meal, if you're going to give them 2 items, give them 2 items of different textures, so we can wean out what they like and don't like. And once we've established what they like and what they don't like, then we can decide on getting them to like more things, right? So we got one thing that they like, one thing that they don't like. Make it simple for yourselves, parents. As you know, we're bartering here. So you give me a bite of the thing that you don't like, I'm gonna give you a bite of what you do like, right?
It still happens at age 8.
Right. And you've got to, that is the only way you're going to get them to eat more things.
Right.
But keep in mind, parents, their palates are also established at baby. So when you start feeding them baby food, you got to give them a variety of things. So you may not like the broccoli and banana and like, but they will. So give that to them. And even find, like, once again, you're making it simple. So find single item baby food. So if it's just broccoli, and doesn't have the sweet component, they may like this, but that's okay. You want them to get a palate, and the taste buds change. So you're going to have to keep reintroducing these foods, but the earlier, the better. Right. So if you've already got a palate for broccoli, their brain has already established a connection that we like broccoli. Right? We can tolerate broccoli. So that when they're 2 and 3 years old and they're ready to they're not going to be ready to throw the broccoli across the room. They're going to be more willing to eat a piece of broccoli. Like, I have a kid who only wants to eat salad. Why? Because his mom used to let him suck on the leaves of the salad since he was little. And so now he's established that, I like the texture, even though it's smooth and it's crunchy. I like the texture of this salad. I've established a like for it because I've been introduced to it so many times, right? So you've got to realize that I know it makes it easier to just give them chicken nuggets, but you in the long run, it's going to be so much harder, especially for a child with food aversions, right? If you
Mm.
get them used to these things, even when they don't like them, you introduce it to them continually. As they get older, it may not be their favorite thing to eat, but they'll at least be able to tolerate it, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's what you want because they need the nutrition. So you don't want to
Right.
be thinking about how we transition from chicken nuggets to real food. You want to have introduced it before so they're consistently getting the nutrition.
Right.
Another thing with touching, I have a kid who doesn't like sticky stuff. He will freak out and cry over sticky stuff. So,
Glue, Play-Doh.
right. What helps is he likes sweet stuff. So I'll put honey on his fingers. And when
Mm.
I do, he's flipping out and tearing the place apart. But I say, lick your fingers. And he'll lick his fingers. And now it's a nice association with sticky. Sticky used to be bad. Like, think about it. When children make these associations that upset them, they usually think that it's something bad that's going to hurt them or make them sick.
Mm.
So it's danger to them when they don't like these textures or these tastes. So you've got to show that it's not dangerous. It's okay.
Mm.
This is not going to make you sick. It's not going to make you throw up. It's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? Because they're really thinking that in their little brains.
Mm.
So it's a valid concern. And so you've got to address it that way. So he's got sticky. He's freaking out. I tell him to lick his fingers. Or I'll put it on his face and he'll lick his fingers. And he realizes it's sweet.
Mm.
He likes it. So then then he's more willing to play with his fingers and the stickiness of it, and he's willing to tolerate it because it's not as bad as he thought. And so these are the connections you're making so that your child has less things that they hate or are afraid of, and more things that they're willing to tolerate. So keep that in mind, even as early as them eating soft foods, which is around 6 months is when we start to gumming stuff. Give them a host of different things that they can play with in their mouth. Even if they're early and you give them a little tiny piece of broccoli on their tongue and they feel the little bristles of the broccoli on their tongue as a baby, that little piece is not going to hurt them. That little tiny piece is not going to make them sick. They're not going to choke on it. It's too small to do anything, but they're feeling what the different sensations in their mouth or what broccoli feels like, because broccoli feels weird. And so you want to give them that early on so that it establishes a tolerance for a variety of textures and tastes and different things like that. You have to start to introduce them to those things early. Now, outside of the food piece, sensory support is very important, especially for our children with autism. And even without autism, a hug comforts everybody, right?
Right.
Well, imagine if they need hugs in different ways. Like a hug in a different way could be a squeeze on the arm. Some kids like to have their hands held tight to feel supported. Some kids like a weighted blanket. Walmart sells weighted blankets, so you ain't got to go far. But that may help them sleep better. They may help them be less restless.
A teddy bear.
A teddy bear, even a light brush, like the soft bristle brushes. Sometimes children like to be brushed on their arms, on their shoulders, on their legs. That helps them feel comforted, right? Warmth. Sometimes, a friend of mine used to put the little bean bag in the microwave and then put it on her daughter's shoulders. That is comforting. Children usually, with sensory sensitivities and a lot of times with autism, they experience sensory differently. So weight may seem heavy to you, but it's comforting to them. It gives them balance now.
Right.
Things were out of whack and they felt like they were falling, or they felt like they weren't balanced. And you put the vest on them, it makes them feel balanced. So for you, it may just feel like heaviness. For them, it helps their equilibrium almost align. You know what I mean? There are so many things that cause sensory sensitivities that could be the semicircular canals inside of the eardrums, inside the ears. It could be just a processing thing. The autism piece. There's so many things involved, but that's why you have to try these things out. Let them touch a cactus. Let them. So when you turn the stove off on these glass top stoves, you give it some time. But when the stove is still warm, of course, parents, you're going to touch it first. You're not just going to let them touch it. But let them put their hands.
You're not saying to do that.
No. Don't
not say.
But when it's still warm, let them put their hand on it and then explain it to them. So you see how that feels warm? There's other things like when they have warm water in the sink or cold water, let them experience both the warmth and the cold. Let them put their hand in ice water.
Mm-hmm.
Different things like that, because you want them to once again experience the world. You want them to be comfortable with the different things they're going to come in contact with. Because if it's a person who likes to cook or bake, they're going to have to know what ice water feels like. They're going to have to, you know what I mean? When they're washing dishes, they have to know what warm water feels like. These we take for granted as simple, typical things. But for someone who has sensory concerns, you've got to reintroduce it to them in a positive light.
Very good. Very nice.
Thank
you. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I hope you all parents have, or you don't have to even be a parent. You could be an educator. You can just, auntie, uncle, whoever just wanted to learn about early childhood intervention and just moving forward to, like, my daughter was diagnosed a year and a half ago. So a year and a half ago, she was diagnosed. In fact, she had early intervention, and they said she didn't have autism because she was looking and she was whatever. So I would say, with everything that has been said, also, it doesn't matter how old they are. If you see something that is okay, let me check on that. And so it's very important, no matter how old, to really get the services that she needs. So that I think is very important.
Yes, and I appreciate that, Jacquees. Like, I think that's awesome what you've done with your daughter. I have to say that you're always sharing.
And we know each other personally.
Yes, but you're always sharing strategies and things that you've been doing. But that takes a lot of work. That takes adventure. That takes taking the fear and stepping out to try things out. You know what I mean? To see what works for your daughter and not being frustrated if this doesn't work. Your patience is immense. You know what I mean? For you to have found so many successful things, girl. For you to have found so many successful things, I know you didn't find them on the first try.
I didn't die on the first try.
Exactly. No. It takes that kind of patience. And,
yes.
And I just want to share one more thing about the social skills piece. If your child is having difficulty with that, parents, first speak to them like adults, no matter how young they are. Talk, no baby talk. Talk to them like adults. Have a conversation with them back and forth. Let them interact with other people. In this time of COVID, take them outside. We're across the street from others, but let them still wave at other people across the street. This is how we interact. Have them FaceTime family members and have a conversation. Facilitating the conversation. Tell grandma what you want them to ask little Johnny. Tell little Johnny what you want them to ask grandma. Facilitate in what a conversation is supposed to look like. Cutting people off. Show them how to stop and say, we wait for someone to finish. If they don't have these social skills, help create them based on what you know. And parents, you don't have to be a professional to know. Just think about a conversation you had with your homegirl. What? He did that? Like, you are.
And she will imitate.
Right. You are affirming what they said.
Yes.
In the conversation. Show your child what an affirmation looks like. Show what it says, like, hi, how are you? We greet people when we say hello. Bye. Right. If someone's sad, I'm so sorry you're sad. How can I help? You know what I mean? Just show them what you do in a conversation. That alone is going to be helpful.
Like, I also want to say, even with waking her up every morning, I'll be like, good morning. And she's like, and I'm like, good morning. And I will pick on her until she says good morning, because it is a conversation back and forth.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so let's get ready for the day. So just, something like that to try to make sure that there's still an interaction, a connection from home to school to therapists, and make sure I really would definitely advocate that for parents to ask questions or to make sure that the therapists give you reports on a weekly or monthly basis. I know it's COVID-19 where everybody is home. It's still a learning process. So you're saying, like, speech pathologists come to your home. They do have services for speech OT, even PT on Zoom.
Yes.
Right now. So it's, it's still, and then interacting with teachers. I also recommend talking to your child's school counselor if there's any emotions that come along because she has a counselor that she talks to on a regular basis, just to check on when you were talking about emotions and how do you feel today. And we do an interaction every day. Okay, how do you feel throughout the day? So I think it's very important to have connections. So anyway, parents, I hope you all like this. We will do more of these. Thank you so much, girl.
Thank you, Jacqueline. You're awesome. What you're doing here is awesome. I know God is going to bless it, and I hope that it helps the families that it needs to.
Yeah. So
I know it will.
So share your link.
Yes, definitely. Yes. I'm gonna share it. I think.
I think. Did I give you access to it? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay, but what is it? Let me try to.
Oh, you know what I can do? I can. So it's my YouTube channel, and it's under Speak Life. I have the link. And what I can do is I can post it on on this video here. So
yes, let's just do that.
Watch after and stuff can find it. I will post that and the developmental chart.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. Thank you. I hope you all liked it. Please share it among, because this is just a growing. This again, learning with Jasmine is a present continuous thing for me. And so this is the way that I'm coping. To make sure that there is no stress. And also what I have learned so far, I don't know it all. And so just to ask other questions and to have this. So I'm definitely going to replay this and take my notes into consideration. But thank you for your time. And thank you for everything, girl.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.